Let's go straight to Washington, D.C. for the very latest on these trade headlines. Yahoo Finance's D.C. correspondent Jessica Smith joins us with the very latest. So, Jess, what do we know?
Well, we are still waiting for official word from the White House, but Bloomberg is reporting that the president has signed off on a phase one deal. He was meeting with his trade advisors earlier this afternoon, and Bloomberg reports that they were pitching them the deal that they had struck with Chinese negotiators. That deal reportedly included an agreement to buy more U.S. farm goods in exchange for the U.S. calling off those December 15th tariffs and possibly rolling back some of the existing tariffs. Bloomberg also reports that both sides have agreed not to manipulate their currencies. We also know that President Trump met with some CEOs this afternoon at the White House, including the Cummins CEO and several other business roundtable leaders. They were talking about USMCA, but China obviously also came up in that meeting just yesterday. Those business roundtable CEOs were talking about the need for this phase one deal. So again, Bloomberg reporting that President Trump is signing off on this phase one deal. We'll be sure to keep you updated if we hear any official word from the White House.
Jess Smith with the very latest on the U.S.-China trade deal. So again, waiting for details here, and that's where it's all going to come down, is in the details. You are still not optimistic, I assume, even based on the reporting that we just heard from Jess there.
Well, I mean, this is kind of what we've expected all along. I mean, the thing that the Chinese seem able to offer is to buy more U.S. farm products. But guess what? They need food. They actually need U.S. farm products. They have a shortage of pork because of African swine fever that's wiping out their own pork, their own hogs, and they need soybeans because they're getting them from Brazil now. But Brazil has hiked prices, and they want the United States as a second source, or another big source to counteract Brazil. So, is that a deal?
Right. And how big is it? I mean, in the Oval Office, the last time we had the whole team there, it was 40 or 50 billion worth of agriculture products, which is
a lot.
A lot more than they've ever bought.
Right.
We have not. Right. We haven't crossed that before.
Right. So, but I mean, you have to go back to why is Trump doing this in the first place? What Trump has been saying he wants from China is reforms to the economy. He wants them to basically stop subsidizing the big companies, stop flooding markets with undercutting American firms, stop keeping U.S. firms out, stop stealing Western technology, and so forth. We're not even talking about that stuff anymore. All we're talking is about undoing parts of the escalation that have already been put into place. So this goes back to, I mean, with Trump, you always have to watch out for when he's trying to claim credit for putting out the fire that he lit.
Yeah.
And I think that to my mind, this falls in that category.
I think what's going to be really interesting in the year ahead, I mean, the market has decided today that this is good news and the market's going to go up.
It is good news for markets.
Right. And I think what's going to be really interesting, to your point, Rick, on all the details, the particulars, where do we go with China, yada, yada. Like, obviously, we've begun a generational process here of figuring out what China trade looks like. But the stock market and financial markets in general are starting to see a global economy that has come back from looking recessionary, and it appears 2020 will not contain a global recession. It appears the U.S. will not tip into recession. The bond market is very aggressively pricing that in. So how does that play into negotiations? Because it has, right? Quite significantly, all of 17 and 18. And 19. So what does it look like in 2020 going into an election? I think it's just going to be a very interesting dynamic.
Well, I mean, I don't think the global economy factors into either side's.
Oh, I think it does greatly. That's what was hurting the U.S. market.
Their own economy so it matters because of how the global economy affects their own economy. So, I mean, I think the dynamic on this is the same it has been for the last 6 months. This is hurting the Chinese economy. It's hurting the U.S. economy less. But I think the one thing, I mean, Trump's biggest miscalculation, I think, on this has been he has just not accounted for China's pain threshold, which is way higher than he thinks it is. China plays a long game, as anybody who follows China knows, and they are much more willing than I think we are to take a little short-term pain for whatever they think is the long-term gain.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.